Hello, welcome to the Bean Pod. I'm Emma Davidson. In this episode, I talked to two Imperial College London students about their Imperial interview. How did they prepare for it? What kind of questions did they come up? How did they handle them? They have some great tips. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast on the Imperial interview. So joined with me today, we have Calvin, who is in his second year at Imperial, and you're doing biomed engineering. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, biomedical engineering.
Fantastic. And we're also joined by Dylan Tan. And Dylan, you're also in your second year.
Yes, that's right.
Chemical engineering.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, and both of them had interviews for Imperial, and we wanted to do a podcast about the Imperial interview because it is different to the Oxford and Cambridge interview, and everybody talks about those, but nobody really talks about the Imperial one. Not all courses at Imperial do interview, but if you do, of course, it's very, very, very competitive. So it's important that you are prepared for it and you know what's coming, and you can prepare for the interview. So we're going to get some tips from Dylan and Kathleen on how to prepare for the interview. And I think one of the reasons why people don't really focus on the Imperial one is because they maybe think it's a bit shorter, but in a way that makes it harder because it's more compact. So you have a shorter time to make a bigger impression. So why are they interviewing? Exactly the same as Oxford and Cambridge. They want another data point to assess you. They want to check things that you might have said in your personal statement. And so it'll be really good to hear what the boys had in their interview and what they were asked. So should we start by speaking first to Calvin? Can you just sort of tell us, when did you hear about your interview offer? When did your interview happen? How much time did you have? Because some people think, I'm going to start prepping once I get the offer. Like, how much time did you have between the interview offer and the actual interview? And what technology did you use, and how did it go? What kind of questions did you get asked?
I think I received the offer for the interview about a month before the interview. I think there's like a minimum of like 2 to 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. So you do have some time to prepare. And I think Imperial gives out their interview in batches. So even for the same intake, you could have interviews spaced across like a week or two.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so when did you actually do wasn't it in early December?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it was quite early on. So you heard in November, you had it in December, and you just had one interview. And how long was it?
No, I mean it was one interview day, but then it was split into a group interview and a one-on-one interview.
Okay, great. And how did that work? What was the format of those?
So if I remember correctly, it was, I think, a 3 hour long session. However, not all of it was an interview. Some of it was just like admin stuff. And then you were allocated a group interview time of about 20 to 30 minutes, and then a one-on-one interview for about 20 minutes. So you would have breaks in between them to like
Okay.
rest, eat something. Yeah.
Okay. And what happened in the 30-minute group interview?
So the group interview was the format was basically you were given, I think, a short document. Since I take biomedical engineering, mine was about different structures for artificial bones, like metal bones. And then we had to analyze the document, discuss within the group, and then present which which design we thought was the best as a group. Yeah, so I think the moderators checked in during the discussion phase, but then during the presentation phase, they were, fully analyzing each candidate.
Okay. And how many people were in your group?
Around 4 to 5.
And were they from all over the world?
Yeah, I think I had two Chinese girls and then another guy from, I think, another country, but yeah,
Okay.
I have no Malaysians with me.
Okay, great. So I think also a bit like a lot of the scholarship interviews, important then not to be sort of over domineering, right? Being a very strong character is not necessarily a good thing, right? Were you able to get a good discussion going between all four members?
Yes, I think I was quite lucky in the sense that everyone was quite proactive. So we had a good discussion. There wasn't someone who were like really dominating, and no one was especially quiet. Although I do know some other groups were like completely mismatched with one person speaking for most of the time. So I would say, if there's already discussion, join in. If there isn't, try to start one by asking people what ideas they had rather than presenting yours first. It's always better to see what everyone thinks and then presenting your viewpoint and maybe defending it than just going in and saying, this is what I think and this is what we should do.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I agree with that. And what happened in the single interview that was about 20 minutes? Was that just with one person interviewing you?
Yes, I think it was a professor at the department. So different people had different professors. And I think the format varies. So my format was a bit like a Cambridge interview where I had a bunch of technical questions. But I know other, like for example, a friend of mine in the same course, his interview consisted of purely talking about his personal statement and what he did in it. So I would say the Imperial interview is quite hard to prepare for because it really depends on the mood of the professor.
Okay, yeah, they'll have their standard questions, and maybe there was something in the personal statement that they wanted to develop, right? They were kind of interested in it. So you had no questions on your personal statement. Did you prep for that beforehand?
Yes, I think I prepped more on my personal statement for the Imperial interview than any technical questions, but then I had technical questions instead.
Okay, great. Well, you obviously did the well because you got your offer. All right, thank you. So Dylan, how was that similar story for you?
Mine was more straightforward, where I only had a personal one-on-one interview. So I had no group interview in my course. It was just a half an hour interview with a professor in the course who actually is my maths lecturer. But yeah, so it was a lot more straightforward than Calvin's one.
And was it just one person interviewing you?
Yes, it was just
Okay.
well, yeah.
And how long did you have to prepare? Did you get any notice, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
I don't think it was that long, probably 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay, 2 weeks. And so what kind of things was he asking you?
He started off asking about my personal statement and just to talk about the points in my one. So let's say if something in my personal statement was related to the topic of thermodynamics, then he would ask me a bit more about that just to test my understanding. And he also asked the usual personal questions like why Imperial, why chemical engineering, and then he also asked some more like job interview questions, which was like about a group project or when you showed leadership, when you showed teamwork, communication skills. So that kind of took me by surprise. And because that wasn't really, because I also had the skills part of my personal statement where I talk about some of my previous activities, like, um, for example, in KTJ, the Oxbridge, the engineering, that competition too. So yeah, those parts were definitely harder to prepare for. And
Okay.
then yeah,
No, go on, go on.
and then afterwards we went to the more technical questions. So I remember there was maybe two math questions and one more like chemistry slash physics question. Yeah, but those were those. I mean, I also did prepare for them beforehand. Yeah,
Okay, so real mix there. You had a packed 30 minutes.
yeah,
There's
it
a
was
lot
really
happening in your 30 minutes. And
yeah,
fantastic, you'd done the Oxford Engineering Workshop.
yeah.
There you
They,
go. Very good.
yeah.
Always good to hear it was useful. All right. So what technology did you both use? Because you were obviously sketching things, right? In these questions they were asking you. So Calvin, what technology did you use?
I think ours was a Zoom call, but if I remember correctly, I sketched on my notes app on my iPad. So I didn't sketch on the Zoom, but I think I did, show him some of my sketches because we had to do like, I think a graph and some logic questions. So I did show him like this, but it wasn't like written on directly on Zoom.
Okay, so they didn't get you to connect in someone, because sometimes you can connect your tablet to the call, right? You didn't do that.
No, I don't think so.
You just showed it. Okay, Dylan, how did you do your sketching?
At that point in time, I didn't have an iPad yet, but I remember I used to use this touchpad where there's like a pen, and then I could connect it to my laptop. And then my interview was also conducted on Zoom. So I was using the touchpad. I was able to write directly on the Zoom whiteboard. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Then that was quite easy because you'd got your pen.
Yeah.
I mean, if you haven't connected your pen, it's probably pretty hard to sketch some of this thing out, isn't it?
Yeah, using your touchpad would be basically impossible.
Okay, great. And just a sort of a technical question, did you sort of test your Zoom, your connectivity? Did you think about where you were going to do the interviews? Did you test Zoom beforehand and do a dummy run, or you were quite comfortable with the technology? Kelvin?
Well, I was really afraid that something would go wrong. So I think I joined everything like 15, 20 minutes before. They do give you a safety window to join before the actual meeting, but I think I was there checking the Wi-Fi, making sure my laptop was charged and everything. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah, great tips actually. Yeah, double check your laptop's charge and have your charger there. Dylan, did you do the same thing?
Yeah, same. They also gave a 15-minute window, and obviously I did not want to take any risk. So I joined at least 15 minutes before, and I was just checking everything like my mic, my camera, the Wi-Fi had a stable connection, and also just that the household was quiet. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Good point. So, overall, both of you had quite different interviews, but I suppose we can sum up and say that they were looking to test your interest in the actual subject, your passion for your subject, definitely your skills, and your subject knowledge. Both of you were definitely tested with your subject knowledge of your maths and your physics. And I guess a little bit for you, Calvin, also your biology as well came up.
yeah. You
Okay. So let's move on now to think about how you prepared for these interviews. Um, how did you, we've talked, Calvin, about you did a lot of work on your personal statement. So I guess you reread it, and then did you do extension reading from the topics you'd raised in your personal statement?
yeah, I think it's definitely a good idea to really know your personal statement. I would say for mine, instead of reading outside my personal statement, it's more like I had quite a lot of content that I had to shrink from my personal statement. So, yeah, like I definitely knew more about the subject than I've written because of the limits of a personal statement. But it's definitely good to read around the subject, and I would say it's really good to have a particular topic in your subject that you really enjoy. Like, for example, mine was prosthetics. So I did read a lot about it. I watched a few movies that contained, the topic of prosthetics, like Star Wars. I watched like a medical drama that involved implanting a prosthetic. So, having a good idea of that particular field makes you stand out. Because then, when they ask you, what do you really like? You can go quite in depth and you can give relevant examples rather than saying, oh, I just read it in a book. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So your personal statement's here, but as you say, you'd done more research anyway for your personal statement that you'd had to cut down. So you went back to that original bank of research that you'd done. Dylan, was that the same when you were prepping your personal statement?
Yes, it's very important to truly understand the content in your personal statement. But I think one point I would add is that if they ask you about your personal statement, don't try to give too much information or sound like a know-it-all, because sometimes the complexity of those topics could just be out of your depth. So you don't want to risk yourself getting asked a question which you don't really know the answer to. Yeah. But definitely really understanding your personal statement is important. But I think the more important part is also just to show your interest and your passion in the topics that you write in your personal statement. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, we talk a lot about this passion, showing your passion in your subject. Are you conscious of how you show your passion? Were you sort of thinking of different examples of your knowledge and not so much experience of chemical engineering, because they don't allow you to go and do some chemical engineering, but aspects of it. Were you trying to think of examples of how you could show your passion?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I did was definitely also research the department itself. So, I mean, the Imperial Chemical Engineering Department is famous because it has the carbon capture plant located inside the building. So I also mentioned that, and just other aspects of the course that I found particularly interesting and what made me apply to the course. So I guess it's not just passion for chemical engineering, but also passion for the specific course within Imperial. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great tip, actually, really knowing the course as well. Did you do that as well, Calvin? So that I really explore the course in depth?
Yes, I think it's how you say, a lot of courses have the same name, but the modules differ a lot from uni to uni. So you really have to know how you say, what are the highlights of your course? Like for example, Imperial's biomedical engineering course, you get to select a specialization in your third and fourth year. So that's what really drew me into it, because I can specialize in the mechanical side or the electrical side, or even computational. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And as Dylan was saying, you can be asked why this course and why Imperial, right? So yeah, definitely worth knowing. So while you were having your conversations, you have to obviously explain things when you're sketching and graphing and things. And we sort of say that this is articulating your thoughts out loud. So you're having to kind of explain what you're writing and how you're thinking and approaching it. Did you practice that skill of sort of sketching and talking out loud rather than just sitting there quietly and thinking? Did you practice that, Calvin?
I would say I had a lot of mock interviews that were really helpful. So I think I had a total of three, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, and then that really forced you to basically slow everything down, and really explain step by step. Because when the interviewer, is assessing you, he or she can't understand what you're thinking. So if you don't say, and let's say you just write, they'll just see random numbers. So what I actually did was, when I first saw the problem, I'll try to break it down into what are the steps I need to take rather than actually taking the steps first. So I'll say, oh, because it's a graph problem, I need to, look at this, look at this, look at this. And then after that, then only I analyze each step. So, it gives you time to think. It makes your, how you say, it makes you seem very logical, and you have like a clear step-by-step approach to solving any question.
Okay. So yeah, good idea that you're actually saying it out loud and you're planning it, and she can see that you're planning it and you're not just sitting there in silence. How did you practice speaking out loud? I mean, was it more than just the 3 mock interviews?
I would say, how you say, discussing ideas and practicing with your friends is quite a good way to do it. It doesn't have to be a formal way, like for example, interview with each other. It can just be in class when someone asks you, oh, how do you do this? You break it down into steps. So that's a really good way, because yeah, I'm quite used to discussing ideas with my friends, especially in class. So when you try and take that skill and put in the interview format, it's quite similar. Of course, there's extra stress and stuff like that, but it's still the same as breaking things down into small and easily understandable parts.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's the exact same tip that one of the Cambridge economists had, coming out from class and discussing it afterwards what they all did in class and her explaining it to other people in logical steps. Yeah, exact same advice on how to practice this skill of articulating out loud. So Dylan, how did you practice that skill, or did you just wing it?
No, I definitely did not wing it.
Okay.
Um, I think this skill is very useful, not just for, a uni application interview, but just for any interview or any meeting in general. So definitely by practicing it, I did the mock interviews, including by MABECS also. I did a mock interview with MABECS. And I also just spoke to my friends. And you just have to keep practicing your speech so that you don't just wander off in a direct with no purpose or no direction. Yep.
When you were practicing with your friends, did you sort of schedule, not formally schedule time, but did you sort of sit down? Was it just chats, or did you sort of pick a problem and go through a problem? Did you sort of like do mock interview questions with your friends?
I think it was more of just a chat, but I think it's just the ability to articulate your message and just to be clearly explaining something to someone who is not familiar with that topic. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so some people think that it's an interview. For both of you, did it feel like an interview or did it feel like a sort of a conversation similar to the ones that you'd been having with your friends in class and out of class? Dylan, was it a conversation or was it an interview?
It did feel like more an interview, although I did try to strike a connection with my interviewer based on essentially I did research on my interviewer, right, to see what fields, what subjects that he specializes in, that he has published papers in. So then I would try to bring those topics into that to turn into a sort of a conversation and to help stand out. But I mean, it was still quite intimidating and it didn't have the vibes of an interview, yeah.
Okay. So that's a good tip, researching your interviewer and hopefully getting onto topics that he likes and enjoys as well. Yeah, again, shows that you're really committed and interested in going to Imperial, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You've done your groundwork. Calvin, did yours feel like a conversation or more of an interview?
I think mine was definitely an interview. I just felt like I was solving questions. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, because you didn't get to chat about your personal statement, right?
Yeah, mine was quite, straight to the point. Oh, I have a few questions. Here are them. Yeah.
Okay. How did you practice sketching out things? Did you use any resources that helped you prepare to answer these sort of technical academic questions where you had to sketch out a solution or something?
Yes, I can't remember on the top of my head, but there is a website that has
Is
all
it
like
I
the
want to study engineering?
yes, it's that one, yeah. I think it has like all sorts of questions, physics, math, sketching stuff. Um, yeah, I think I did most of them. I think I even printed it out for OBS and I was doing them
So
there, but
you
yeah.
were kayaking, canoeing, and sailing along with I want to study engineering
Yeah,
questions.
I put it in like a plastic folder and I kept it in my backpack. But yeah, that's a really good resource because I think all the questions I had were from that or at least variations of that. So I was actually quite happy because when I heard the questions, I was like, oh, I know how to do this. But then, I took my time to slowly explain it. Yeah, so
As if you
definitely,
were working it out for the first time, maybe.
yes, yeah.
But you also don't want to rush and be overconfident and rush it and make some mistakes. Yeah, I agree. Taking it steadily is a good plan. All right, great. So you did practice those. Dylan, did you actually practice for the technical questions as well?
Yeah, I did also practice for the technical questions. Yeah, I also use I want to study engineering, but also in general, I would just through the mock interviews, I will also treat those as possible types of questions. And also there were resources online also that would help. Yeah.
What resources online did you use?
Oh, for example, chemistry, there was like a Isaac Physics or Isaac Chemistry, which was another online website that also had questions based on that. For maths, I knew that graph sketching was quite likely to be asked, so I just saw what were the common types of graphs that they would ask to sketch. Yeah.
Okay. Did you go back to some of the sort of previous admissions tests and do any of those past questions?
Yeah, I did. The admission test questions are definitely slightly trickier than your regular A-level questions, but I think their ones are a bit harder because a lot of them are more of multiple choice questions rather than being able to really elaborate your answer. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, how did you both combat nerves when you were preparing for your interview, just before you kind of went in? Or maybe how did you make sure you had like a good night's sleep before the interview? How did you calm yourself just before you went in, Calvin?
I think first thing is to make sure you're prepared for it enough. So you don't want to be going to interview having to spend the hour before still studying. So what I normally do is make sure I'm caught up with all my tasks, done all my research, and then normally the day of the interview, I wouldn't do any more studying. Maybe like a quick 5 minutes before the actual interview to read through my notes. But I always feel that for such an important event, an extra day shouldn't make a difference. So it's better to take the time off, watch a movie, go out. I actually had my Cambridge interview like 2 or 3 hours ago, so I think that sort of like got rid of all the nerves for the Imperial interview. Yeah, so I think I went to it pretty calm.
Okay. So that's really good, the idea of just sort of kind of clearing your head of, so you can, you can see the wood for the trees because you've got that little bit of space from all of your notes. Yeah. Okay. Dylan, how did you calm your nerves before the interview?
Yeah, same thing. The night before, I would say is the final stretch where I will really make sure that I understand my personal statement and I'm prepared for all the technical questions. And then on the day itself, I just wanted to avoid any unnecessary last minute worrying or panic or stress. And yeah, I mean, the most important thing is just to get good sleep. Don't eat anything that upsets your stomach. That's for sure. Yeah.
Okay, that's a really good tip. Okay, and so do you have any final top tips to share with your juniors, Calvin? What's your main
Um,
tip, you would say?
I would say try to talk about something you find cool, and how you say instead of looking to make something cool, it's better to actually find your interest and then expanding there rather than trying to search up interesting facts that you can memorize. Yeah.
Okay, so um, did you do sort of passion projects that you could then possibly discuss in your interview?
Yes, I did. I think my personal statement was full of projects rather than uh, papers or anything that I've studied. So, like, I designed a prosthetic arm with my roommate. So that was a highlight of my personal statement, and that makes it really easy to talk about because you will, how you say, not only will you show them that you're interested in the topic, but you can also relate to some of the problems that comes in this field. Like, for example, we had a lot of engineering problems like size, weight, cost, and as engineers themselves, your interviews will relate to that, and it shows that you have some real world experience, which I think is how you say ma- more important than saying I got A star in my math exam or something.
Yeah. So in a way, it was easier for an interviewer to find out what you're interested in because you'd done lots of things. There was evidence of you doing all these passion projects, so they can see which areas you're interested in. Yeah, so that opened up avenues to talk about them. Okay, so Dylan, was the same thing for you?
Yeah, that's definitely important. But my top tip would probably be to really utilize your network of friends because obviously you have many other people who are going through the same application process as you. So even though, for example, me and Kelvin were both doing different engineering courses, but a lot of similar technical questions might still be asked. So just practicing those questions together and getting feedback from your friends and stuff is definitely a lot more useful than going through this whole process by yourself.
Yes. Well, I tell you, you couldn't have put it better if I'd given you that script, because one of my big ideas at MABECS is bubbling people, because there are lots of students out there who don't have the benefit of that you two had of having being in the same school. So if you're by yourself, that opportunity to talk to somebody else about your subject, I think is really, really important. And did you feel it was important to have somebody who was also there on the journey with you, and you were having this shared experience? Did you feel that was important as well, Dylan, as well as the academic conversations?
Oh yeah, it's definitely important, right? Because obviously at that period of time you can be quite worried or stressed because university application is such an important stage in life, right? So having other people who are going through the same thing makes you feel less anxious, and it definitely helps that you guys can have the mentality of, oh, we will both do well and we will both get into this university. It's an extra level of motivation. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Yeah, true. I mean, two people working together is always better than two people working by themselves, for sure. All right. So thank you very much, Dylan Tan, for joining us. This actually is your evening. Very late you, very early for me. Thank you, Calvin Yap, for also joining us and sharing your experience. That's great. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, thanks. Bye. Bye. Good evening. Bye.